Yesterday, there was a sort of nothing story about Angela Rayner proposing to join together councils and create super councils in various areas. And today, suddenly, this has exploded into one of the greatest affronts to democracy that we have seen. Labour's plans to reorganise these local councils and delay elections next year presents a critical political background between reformist intent, I use the term very loosely, not technically, reformist intent and accusations of democratic subversion by Reform UK. Angela Rayner has framed this as a necessary overhaul to strengthen democracy, streamline government, and devolve power from Whitehall. Meanwhile, Nigel Farage and Reform UK portray it as an authoritarian move designed to stifle electoral accountability in areas where Labour faces potential losses and where reform is strong. The proposal to merge district councils into larger strategic authorities is intended to reduce administrative complexity and generate savings of up to £2 billion. And, frankly, when I look at my own councils in Rugby and the Warwickshire County Council, I see complete indolence. Yes, there should be some change there, because they do absolutely nothing. Angela Rayner has emphasised empowering local communities, aligning Labour's broader agenda with progressive devolutionary politics and policies. The local government minister, Jim McMahon, argues that elections for councils set to be dissolved would be wasteful, suggesting shadow councils would better facilitate transitions during reorganisation. So the local council would continue until the full newly organised councils are established. Similar election postponements occurred in Cumbria and Somerset during earlier reorganisations, softening claims that this is an unprecedented manoeuvre. Same thing in Daventry and wherever the area is, Northampton. Farage decries the delays as manipulation on a grand scale, likening Labour's move to a despotic erosion of democracy, and Reform UK's social media campaigns accuse Labour of silencing voters and consolidating power under the guise of reform. Farage claims that Labour is trying to dodge a referendum on Starmer's leadership in 2025, with polling indicating that struggles in rural counties like Essex and Kent, where elections may well be delayed, would spare Labour from losses in reform-friendly areas, which would be an effective referendum on Keir Starmer's authority and leadership in the early months of his tenure. Reform UK's rhetoric taps into the growing voter frustration with elite politics, framing itself as a champion of the disenfranchised, a strategy resonating in areas disillusioned with Westminster. And both sides are leveraging the issue now for political advantage. Labour's emphasis on reforms, with Rayner's defence suggesting that Labour genuinely believes structural changes can strengthen government, but the rushed timetable and potential optics of electoral suppression undermine their case. And Farage's populist framing that while Reform UK claims to defend democracy, its narrative oversimplifies the complexities of reorganisation, exaggerating Labour's intention to stoke outrage amongst its base. The likely outcome is that elections will be postponed, and that risks reinforcing perceptions of an out-of-touch leadership and feeding Farage's narrative of democratic betrayal. Public trust could erode further, particularly if reforms do not deliver swift benefits. And Farage's framing capitalises on anti-establishment sentiment, providing his party with momentum, particularly in areas where Labour and the Conservatives are perceived to have failed. But of course, if a by-election occurs in a council, which we saw recently with Farage's reform taking some seats, if a by-election occurs, it can occur at any time. So if Labour decide that particular councils in reform-leaning areas are not going to go ahead in May, they could go ahead in, August, June, September. A delay, it doesn't have to be a delay until the following year, does it? Both Labour and Reform UK embellish the situation to suit their narratives. And Labour's reforms are not inherently undemocratic, but are politically risky, given the immediate loss of voter input. Farage, in turn, leverages legitimate public concerns while amplifying fears of authoritarianism to bolster Reform UK's position. The true test will lie in whether Labour's structural changes produce tangible benefits. And of course, we won't see that until after there's been a structural change and an election to go along with it. In other words, we won't see that until after the May election has been delayed, which of course delays that local election challenge, which acts as a sort of referendum on Keir Starmer's time as Prime Minister. It doesn't look good for Keir Starmer, does it? And Farage, I'm sure, is going to milk this as far as it goes. And I find it extraordinary that yesterday I saw this and I sort of dismissed this as a non-story. I was wrong. This is a story that's going to go on and on and on.